digital advertising now as effective for brand investment as traditional media channels?
So I don't think we're in a position to measure this effectively right now. There is still a big gap between media KPIs and business KPIs, marketing goals. I think the biggest problem though is the fragmentation on how our advertisers are measuring their brand health. We come across a heap of clients that are looking at brand health in their own way. So until there is consistency in measuring brand health, we are in no position to ladder that back up to measure the difference between the two.
So you're saying digital advertising isn't at the moment that as effective, or could be, but we just don't know?
Absolutely, we just don't know. Until there is consistency in measuring brand health, we won't have the right metrics in place to know whether the digital brand is as effective as traditional.
Right.
I think there's two trains of thought here. There's the idea that brand is advertising as we kind of know it, in that reach plus awareness plus impact equals branding. And in that sense, we can't compete with traditional media. We still can't get the same reach over a nightly airing of TV than we could across CUTV. However, if we think of brand as an experience, then it can definitely compete. So if we think of crafting a user story or a user journey, then digital is much more advanced at that than a traditional media channel.
So the merging of the two helps create this better outcome. I think 54% of all ad spend now is through digital mechanism. Ronny, does that mean therefore digital is now becoming the main player for brand?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of brand as well. So I think when you've got a brand that's kind of looking to reach a much wider group of people, then traditional obviously still has that mass reach. But I think when it comes to more niche brands with more niche targeting, obviously within programmatic you have the ability to be able to target really effectively across that kind of really niche target audience. So I think from my perspective it depends on the type of brand and the type of target audience that brand is attempting to reach.
What do you think?
I think that there are so many more data points, and with the fall of the waterfall, I should say, I have to bring in ad tech, I've got to bring in the supply side. There are many more metrics that are now available to brands to better measure brand success across the digital ecosystem. I think that brands may not be aware of what those metrics are, and once they realise that they're available, they start to have a little bit more trust in the entire ecosystem. And off the back of that, I've certainly seen more brand level conversations come through to me as an exchange and to help us navigate what's available so we can best marry brand-based audience metrics with what we're actually seeing with the tech and in the ecosystem, and that transparency will lead to more investment from the brand side.
So this is an ad tech section. Go on the metrics. What are the metrics that we're not utilising that are existing in the sort of exchange, the pipe?
I think historically the buy side and sell side have sat so separately. You know, brands, agencies, DSPs share a lot of metrics. There's fluid conversation. Where conversation is broken is between exchanges and publishers. And now in a header bidding world where you're all sitting equally, brands deserve to know what's going on all the way through the chain. What that means now is that the metrics that you see in the DSP, the bid doesn't stop at the DSP. The bid goes all the way through the supply chain into the publisher's ad server. So now instead of talking about win rates that end in a DSP, really you need to be talking about your brand's win rate and bid rate as an indicator of your brand strength in the entire ecosystem, coming from exchanges and publishers themselves. So really to close the gap in metrics, bid and win rate from an exchange and an ad server level is paramount to measure brand success.
Fantastic. Do you have a thought on that? Sorry,
That's my bad fault.
Yeah. All right. You highlighted a point there which I thought was quite interesting. So you're saying that let's not focus just on the win rate. Go back again on the SSP side. You're saying that if a brand is effective, audiences will naturally choose that impression?
I'm saying if you see an increase in bid rate across a certain environment and a very low win rate, there's a problem for your brand. Because the bid rate is the identifier as to how aggressive a certain audience is based on a DSP's knowledge base. It's saying that's where your audience is, brand X. It's there and you're bidding really aggressively and your win rate's very poor. But, you know, at the brands in the room, how many of you know what your win rate would be across a certain big publisher that you work with? Probably not many of you. That information is available. You just need to have a relationship with that publisher directly to understand where your audiences are and where you can potentially unlock or work a little bit closer with the sell side to help get everyone in the right room.
Right. So I'm going to add to that from the buyer side is what strategies are you guys looking at that starts to tackle the needs of brands? Because I think brands are trying to look for more assurance and certainty of exposure versus the sort of dynamic winning bid, sort of strong bids that are out there. And I kind of get what you're saying. You know, it's kind of this, there's a high demand there. How are you strategizing to win that demand? But on the buyer side, how do you explain that? And what kind of strategies are you adopting to help brands feel more comfortable in this space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, at Resolution, with a shameless plug here for Resolution, but we are fully transparent when it comes to kind of all things programmatic. So kind of all fees from the supply side or the buy side are very transparent and passed on to the client as such. So I think that's very important. I think transparency is obviously a bit of a buzzword and a bit of a cliche in a lot of ways, but it's something that we're quite passionate about at Resolution. But just on the metrics piece as well, just going away from the fact that I guess programmatic, again, has always been considered lower funnel, acquisition focused, and that's kind of like the buyers of programmatic come from that, born out of that background of looking at clicks, traffic, and all these kinds of things. I think sometimes we get a bit lost in that part of it and forget the emotion of it and the connectivity to the audience we're targeting. So I think we definitely need to get better at that on the buy side. From a programmatic perspective, and programmatic buyers need to understand a bit more about the emotion, I guess more art than science.
What we're doing effectively, I mean, the idea of brand growth is target everyone within your audience set, and that's how you grow your brand. Anyone that's a potential customer is there for your brand. But obviously, fragmentation landscape, you can't compete in every single channel. You can't increase the bid against every single publisher. And so we look at prioritising known opportunity over prospective audiences. So looking at programmatic as a data-led channel, we look at where we can apply first-party data first, second-party, third-party, and focus on the accuracy of that data to ensure that the message we're delivering is relevant and it is timely. And we'll prioritise that over perspective.
Okay, so take that thought and put yourself in the scenario. So we deliver an impression on CTV in the household. There's 4 people in the household. We can see their devices in that household. But was that person really watching that impression at that time? Was it 1, 2, 3? But we saw them. They were in the house. We might have hit 4 people. We might not have. It's not a bad thing. It just means that that's a one too many platform. How do we get better at measuring that? Where's the needle between 2 1-to-1 versus 1-to-many, which actually has been the mainstay of demand generation, is 1-to-many. It's what makes it cost effective. And programmatic's reaching this sort of tension point of how do we know that balance between the two? How are you tackling that? How do you see that?
Looking at the idea of one-to-many in that space, I mean, if we think of TV or the similar experience in which we're trying to replicate here, is TV itself is age band targeted. MCN provides targeting to different data sets based on their channel of data sets. So you look at accuracy, linear TV, down to digital TV, then on to addressable TV. And so the idea that we're targeting a household that has a user behaviour that is within a 5-person radius, as an example, it's much more accurate than a linear TV conversation. So that falls into that much more identifiable audience set, and therefore, whilst we can't guarantee 100% accuracy, the same way that TV panels can't guarantee that X million people watched that TV show and saw that ad, it's definitely much more accurate and more accountable than a linear conversation.
That conversation, which I love, well, that point, which is that merging of the two, presents its challenges, and I think one of those challenges is how do you take the traditional teams and the digital teams and sort of start having them speak the same language. Lou, you were mentioning how you guys are trying to catalyze that situation. Can you talk a little bit more, how are you taking that challenge on, to Kelvin's point, and merging those views within a team that, generally speaking, has been siloed.
Yeah, of course. We, over the last 18 months at Mindshare, have had drastic changes in team structures. Our planners are all hybrid, so they receive the brief and reach out to specialists when needed. They dissect with the strategists and then work with our performance teams. But at the end of the day, it is the one planner that is bringing the whole story together for the client. It's enabled consistency. It is helping close the gap to some degree between the offline, traditional and performance. We're also tackling different ways on how we work with our clients. Some of our clients are taking channels in-house, such as search and social, but still relying on us as the media agency for that overall strategic direction. So we are changing consistently on how we work, but yeah, I mean, the hybrid fashion is not something new for us at Mindshare.
Challenging question. I'm the CFO of a major corporation, and I won't just pick on you now, pick on the whole team, is I've been told that programmatic is expensive. And it takes a lot of work and effort to get this stuff done. I suppose where I'm going with this is it seems to be a high cost, and if we're going to go with brand advertising that's demand gen, it's supposed to be efficient and effective. Are you guys able to rationalize that to brands and say, there is, I suppose, how are you helping a marketer see that there is opportunity in programmatic for brands, and it's not heavy lifting and it's not that difficult? Is that the conversation you're having, and how do you approach that with them?
We are. We're having a conversation on value outcomes. So we talk in another measurement altogether, and it's the value that channel or impression is driving at the very end. So well and truly past the land and the acquisition.
Ronny, how do you guys tackle that?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the old adage that programmatic is not a channel, it's just a way to buy a channel. 10 years time, we're all going to come back and everything will be programmatically bought, and we won't be talking about programmatic, we'll be talking about the individual channels, and I think that gets lost a little bit. You have to go where the people are. We know that people are growing in terms of the online reach, quite exponentially, and particularly compared to traditional. So I think it's, you've got to go where the people are. People are going online, you've got to be able to reach them there. The most effective way to reach people online currently, and the most cost-effective way of doing it is programmatically. So why wouldn't we embrace that? My question back to you, Mr. CFO.
What about websites?
It's an interesting one. Much like resolution, CHE is completely transparent in the way we operate, and we actually bill on a head-hour basis as opposed to a commission of media. Which obviously, when the CFO or procurement look at our retainers and go, what is that person for? We're often get the question, and we have to explain the role of programmatic and the specialty in which they're bringing to the crowd. I think that there will be a shift eventually. I think that supply and demand naturally plays out as digital grows. Influx of the workforce, we're going to see greater competition for roles and effectively plateau. Obviously, to Ronny and Louise's point, you've got to go where the specialty needs to be, and that being programmatic isn't going away, it's only going to grow. I think that the value add is hard to communicate, especially in a branding sense. But ultimately, it's a conversation that you have to have. We work with clients in onboarding or bringing in-house. And we've worked with different models. I think a lot of clients see the challenge being, I have to get a senior programmatic person, I have to get a senior trader, I have to get a whole plethora of roles, which when you put on a P&L adds up. However, if you look at leveraging an agency specialty with a junior resource for trafficking and campaign setup, etc., you suddenly grow your own talent from a relatively low cost base to then form a future leader and therefore make it more cost effective.
Thanks. Exchange side, give us a perspective on how do we create this liquidity in the marketplace for brand advertising?
I mean, it comes down to transparency across the entire ecosystem. You hear a lot of agencies talk about the fact that they're transparent with with their clients. How many of their vendors are equally as transparent with them as they are with their clients? Is my question.
I think
Well, I'm off. I'll have to start again.
transparency.
Transparency. So, based on a bit of personality there, sorry, slipped out. I think that when it comes down to transparency, you hear agencies saying, listen, client, this is how transparent I am, these are my fees, this is what we're paying for. But what we really need to start, what I think we've been very good at in the last 12 to 24 months is starting to really get granular around the transparency on the exchange to supply side. You see a lot of exchanges starting to pass take rate in a bid request. That means that, again, when you're talking to your clients about transparency, it's thorough transparency. It's not just about your fees and your people, it's about the entire chain. We'll see more of this moving forward, and that way you can start to be able to really clearly provide what value you're getting in the entire chain, and the fact that you as an agency know exactly who you're working with, which vendors you're working with, what they're taking, why they're taking it, how they're operating, and then add value on a really granular level, and be truly transparent, not just transparent in the way that you work as an agency, because if you're talking about different things. There's transparency between a publisher and an exchange and a publisher, an exchange and DSP, and what happens within a DSP, and then between the agency and DSP. So it's going to start getting more granular, and the more that you can break that down and be really clear about the fees involved, that way things don't seem so expensive when you can start to break it down as to where you add value. And it also means when they start considering things in-house, they go, okay, so there are a lot of fees involved, that's why agencies charging me this, or I have full control over my investment and I feel more comfortable with that. I'm happy to push my brand money down that ecosystem.
That's exciting. So what I'm hearing is you're asking publishers as well as agencies to really be open as much as possible around the nature of how that transaction is working, because it's ultimately going to give us more options and flexibility. That's what I'm hearing.
I think so, yeah.
Cool. I did hear that right. On the brand side, one thing that I'm observing is give me 100% share of voice. Just homepage takeover, do it programmatically because I get this guaranteed visibility, and my sales team internally are happy that they're getting that. It's not a programmatic world. Or is it? Well,
Sorry, what was the question?
good call. Here's a statement. It's more to say, how do you tackle that? Because programmatic is such an evangelized data first, audience first. But the sales team for Woolies are going, I don't care. I just need to know that you're going to take over a news site and you're going to deliver me a strong brand impactful message, because that's going to drive demand gen. Don't have to pay lots of money for that. I just want you to deliver that. For some reason, that's quite a hard thing to do in programmatic. I mean, as a DSP, we're very aware of sort of how much time it takes to set up these sort of guaranteed positions. Why is that? And I suppose, how do you communicate the value of programmatic to then help in that space to be better? Because I don't suggest we all know the answers, but it's a challenging question.
Yeah, it's a really challenging question. I think we need, as agencies, where our value comes in is to be able to challenge the client on things like that, on the role of particular types of media. Because we get this very often from clients. It's just like, can we do a homepage takeover? How many eyeballs will that get us? What kind of reach will that get us? But then, what does that mean post the reach in terms of ad recall and brand awareness as well? So I think we need to be able, as agencies, to be able to challenge client positions like that and not just become executors and become less transactional when it comes to those kinds of requests. It needs to be, what are you trying to achieve with this particular campaign? And what are your kind of metrics? And we can help recommend metrics as to the success. And it may not just be reach, it may not just be ad recall, maybe a combination of multiple things. But I think you really need to get under the skin of what's the point of this campaign before we just start executing on client requests. Otherwise, like I say, you become transactional. Programmatic becomes a commodity, and it can just be lifted from client to client. As agencies, we need to be able to show that value.
Melbourne, you probably get more of a brunt of it kind of at the CHE proximity level because you're dealing with creatives and they're going, what the fuck? You know, seriously, programmatic is killing my life.
Yep.
How do you talk to them about programmatic and the value they can offer brand experiences that you talk about?
I can guarantee no one was more excited by PwC's future outlook on video than the creative agency and creative department at CHE. I think the battle between media and creative has always been around, and I actually moved to a full service agency with the intent of walking into a creative room and going, no more video, no more video. Because obviously from a sales point of view and performance background, videos are hard to convert from. But the interesting thing is we found a lot of success in engaging creatives at the very, very start of that campaign planning process. As most people do in a planning sense, you hear a brief, you go, your ideas start flying. Same thing's happening with the creative guys. And they basically go down a rabbit hole just as fast as we can with certain executions, and you know, generally before it gets too late and you kind of say, well, actually I can do some great things with this data set and I can have a really close conversation with this audience segment here. And they've already gone, sorry, I've made 90-second TVC that we can't repurpose anywhere else. So the conversation has to be...
On that, can we have a 90-second DSP, a 90-second ad in a programmatic world? Do you think it will happen?
I do think so, but again, it comes down to the audience. And I think that, like for example, definitely in a connected TV environment, could we distribute a 90-second TVC and people would watch it and have impact? But you know, as we see with TrueView, the chance of someone watching a 90-second clip willingly is well 10-15%. So it is a challenge. But what we've had success in is looking at channel roles. You know, to Ronny's point as well, is going, where does this creative message sit within the consumer journey? Which platforms does it sit across? Is it out of home? Is it digital out of home? Is it through TV? Is it online video? And then we toy with the messaging. And the production team at CHE have done a really good job in regards to creating a storyline that is malleable. So whether it be an off-screen audio that comes through in a subtitle or something, that means that the footage can be reused multiple times with a different message. Things like that allow us to tailor a customer journey. And a great example of this is for Velocity. They were very proactive in building out their technology stack, which has given them an extremely strong first-party data set. And what the creative team were able to do there was build a story against each segment of 9 segments of the Velocity group, and effectively tailor a story based on which channels they were interacting with each time. And so based on the user's engagement with the platform, so Velocity's highly engaged audience were targeted by an email and then delivered content via their website, whereas the less engaged audiences were targeted across social platforms and YouTube and other video sites to increase that reach. And the learnings after 3 iterations of that different kind of campaign process have been really amazing, and we've been able to decrease their media spend from what was originally $1.5 million per campaign, which was 2 times a year, down to around $400,000, achieve better ROI.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Further to Cal's point, we find that clients now understand the need for such a close relationship between media and creative, which helps us. We know that neither a creative-led or a media-led creative campaign will be a success without coming together. So we are finding more and more that our clients are pushing for that closer relationship coming from a media agency that doesn't have a creative arm.
Yep. Exchange side, do you spend a lot of time talking to your publishing partners around formats and sort of what is good in terms of building brand?
Fun fact, 90-second video is the most in-demand unit in Taiwan. So there is demand for it in Taiwan. Absolutely, I think what the good news story is that creatives and media are starting to work closer together. Where there's still work to do is for media and tech and publishers to start hearing the results of those conversations and maybe having a seat at that table. I think that's what's missing. So maybe when we get better at that, remember tech is tech. We are, it offends me for people to assume that I'm not creative at all in a sense. I think that so many of the architectures that we build at Index, for example, are very brand centric. I would love to have a voice of the brand in the room when I'm designing these very technical marketplaces occasionally. So I think that it's our job as tech to be nimble and to be malleable, and if that means that we're run and pushed by demand, as we are definitely in this market, we need to be nimble around all parts of that conversation, from transparency, from a creative, from a conversation standpoint. We need to stop acting as silos and stop assuming that there is no creativity or flexibility in tech, because there certainly